Procrastination, the biggest enemy of students. Last term, I was given a task to write a essay in my critical thinking class about the 10th idea that I thought has changed the world. And I sat at my desk in front of the paper for 2 hours and realizing that I had only written 3 lines. So I tried to figure out a way in how to stop procrastination. So firstly, why do we procrastinate? So most common procrastination tips don't actually work in the long term because they only address the symptoms of procrastination rather than trying to solve the root cause. And to solve the cause, we need to understand why we procrastinate. So procrastination isn't about you being lazy or tired or distracted. Instead, it's an emotional coping strategy. This is because when we're faced with large tasks like writing a report or an essay, our brain will assess the task and it will give rise to feelings and trigger negative emotions such as fear, doubt, boredom, perfectionism, or anxiety. And so when I had my CCTE critical thinking essay, it was like 1,000 words and it was really long and I didn't think I could do it. And yeah, I had some self-doubt about it. So whenever I saw the task, like the sheet of paper lying on my desk, I would always just glance at it quickly and just completely avoid it by doing other homework instead to try and avoid the fear and doubt that came over my mind every time I thought about it. So I would do my maths homework, my physics homework, even though they didn't have a deadline, just to try and avoid the guilt of not doing my critical thinking essay. And now thinking back to it, I understand that doing all of this homework was just a form of procrastination to avoid feeling the guilt about not doing the work. And yeah, so our brain will want to escape the feelings and get rid of the negative emotion. And there's 2 ways in which our brain could do this. The firstly is the logical solution. So everyone knows we should just do the work immediately and then complete the task. However, this doesn't really work for people who procrastinate because it takes up lots of energy and time, and our brain are adapted to saving energy. So people will naturally tend to go towards the easier option and avoid doing the unnecessary work because it seems like such a large task. And so this second way in which our brain escapes this feeling of negative emotion is short-term dopamine. And this is actually a problem. It's what basically just causes procrastination. So yeah, in the past it was pretty hard to get it, but in modern day it's quite easy to get it from our phones, like social media or just playing games. And this provides us with a short-term relief or pleasure which will override the negative emotion. And it doesn't actually solve the problem because we're not actually finishing the task. Instead, it just distracts us from it. So this will form a habit loop. So where procrastination becomes a sort of chemical addiction, which is similar to a drug addiction. So yeah, so here we have a cycle of it. So when you have an emotional feeling that you want to avoid, then you might go towards short-term dopamine for scrolling on YouTube shorts or playing games to give yourself relief. And this is a form of procrastination. And then after you get that short relief, it means that next time when you face a similar situation, you're more likely to repeat this, which goes in a vicious cycle, and it's called a habit loop because after you do get the relief enough times, it'll reinforce the habit. And a way to check if you're addicted to procrastination is similar to checking for any other types of addiction. It's just to check for signs of withdrawal. So identify the activities that you use to procrastinate, like games or social media, and try and block that out. So for example, you can just give your mobile devices to your parents, or you can put it in a different room. And so low-level procrastinators will significantly boost their productivity by removing the temptation. However, if you're addicted, you just go on to seek new distractions, and often because might be often driven by the need for short-term dopamine to try and avoid the negative emotions associated with hard work. And so, for example, like if you identify your form of procrastination by just like scrolling on YouTube Shorts, and you actually delete the app completely, instead of just like immediately being able to go into another task, you might go into the app store and then browse for like video games instead. Even if you don't usually play games on your phone, it's just another way to get that short-term dopamine hit. And secondly is common tactics that might be used to solve procrastination and why they might not actually help. So to be able to like solve procrastination and like beat it, you have to acknowledge that it's not about you avoiding the tasks, but about you avoiding the emotions that you associate with them. So these common tactics often doesn't tackle the emotional element of procrastination. And so one common like tactic which is used is to break down big tasks into like smaller ones. So this could help by taking what seems like overwhelming tasks and breaking it down to seem more achievable. So for example, if you had to like climb a mountain, you could break it up into little pieces to like make it seem more achievable. And going back to like the essay, you could break it up into every single paragraph and the research question of what I wanted to write about. It makes it seem more achievable, so it reduces the amount of negative emotion that might be associated with it, so it's easier to start. So it's effective, but it doesn't always work, because if you have so much tasks that even the process of breaking down those tasks seem overwhelming, then you this probably won't help, because you're not even going to be able to start off by breaking the tasks down. Or even after you've broken down the tasks already, and even though like regardless of breaking it down, it seems overwhelming as well, then it might not necessarily help. And the second one is optimizing the environment, which is like removing distractions, blocking apps, or like deactivating your accounts. And this makes it harder to access the dopamine, but the problem is we're like surrounded by distractions all the time, and it's so easy to access. So it seems a bit unrealistic, and it might not be sustainable in the long term. So an example of this is last year in my end of term exams. During those exams, I had like told myself that I wouldn't be playing any games because I knew I used that to procrastinate a lot. And so during that like the few months that was the exam period, I didn't go on my games once, but right after I finished my last like exam, I went on the game as well, like again. And this was like, it was good for the few months that I stopped doing it, but like it wasn't sustainable in the long term, because obviously I couldn't just avoid it like forever, you know. I was actually really excited to go back to playing the game, and it was also like not good to take away something that I enjoyed for so long. So thirdly, how do we beat procrastination? So firstly, the step one is to sit with the discomfort. So instead of trying to like escape those negative emotions, or like this, such as discomfort, perfectionism, or fear, instead just like sit with it. And that's the strategy, that's like the 1 to 5 strategy. So it's basically where like if you're faced with a large task, for example, like I'm back to write the essay, then like when you first receive the task, you might feel lots of like fear and like doubt when you just received it and you have to write it straight away. But instead of immediately going on your phone to try and like escape that discomfort of thinking about it, instead just like sit with it for 1 minute, and then 2 minutes, and then eventually like 5 minutes. And this probably will feel challenging at first, and it might feel really uncomfortable, but that's okay, because like the point of it is to feel like uncomfortable and be all right with that, instead of immediately going to try and escape that feeling. And this will build tolerance and train your brain to stop automatically going to escape discomfort. So stopping yourself from automatically reaching over to your phone, and stopping yourself from automatically going to those like games that you use to try and escape the procrastination. And it'll help you focus easier over time, and it can actually help a lot long term, because after you've done this a long time, it'll actually become a habit to be able to not immediately like reach over to like not immediately go into like social media, for example. And just like, yeah, accept that if just to start straight away, it doesn't always have to be perfect, and it's alright to like just have an idea and start with it, even if it's not like perfect yet. And step 2 is to reframe the task positively. So after you've already like procrastinated for some time, you might have like self-sabotaging thoughts, such as like, I'm already so behind, and what's the point of starting now, because I've wasted so much time already. So the fact that you've already procrastinated, it heightens the negative emotions of fear, doubt, or anxiety, and it actually increases procrastination. So until like urgency. So it's like urgency is like right before the deadline, and you're usually motivated by the consequence of failure, which is very like stressful and risky. And so instead of like, so the way to like solve this is to reframe our mindset, and instead going on to like, well, I'm starting now and I'm making progress, and that's okay. So yeah, so when I was doing my critical thinking like essay, when I was like sitting there for 2 hours and I'd already only written like 3 lines, I thought the same thing. I thought I was already so behind. I wasted so much time already. So what was the point of continuing to do this if I was already so unproductive? But instead of just like giving up completely, I thought that if I like started, even if I started now, I would still be making progress, and it's alright if I only improve 1%. Like, even if I do something now, it's still progress that I've made. And yeah, basically this step is to show how we make progress and to reduce the negative emotion, because we can focus our attention on what we are able to do right now, instead of thinking that nothing we do now will be like worthwhile in the future. So step 3 is to build self-compassion. So procrastination will often lead to feelings of guilt or shame. So it might bring thoughts like, I'm useless, I'm lazy, or why am I like this and I can't get anything done. And this guilt and shame is actually more powerful than the already like negative feelings of like doubt or fear. And this can intensify the negativity and make it harder to actually address the negative emotions. So basically, just like be able to treat yourself with kindness and normalize the struggle, and understand that this is just like a common human experience and everyone has those feelings, to give yourself like emotional safety. So when I was doing my essay, when I got back like one day, I decided that after I got home from school, I would finish the essay, and had written out a whole entire timetable for myself of what I would do and when I would do each paragraph. But the moment I got back and I saw the like sheet of paper lying there, I just immediately went on my phone instead and went on to like YouTube Shorts and started scrolling, and that caused me to waste the whole entire time. And in the end, when I was going to bed, I hadn't gotten anything done, and I was just thinking that I was useless because I had achieved nothing that day and I wasn't productive at all. So yeah, but instead we should think in a way that like even like a 1% improvement is enough, and yeah, we shouldn't be too hung up on the fact that we didn't do anything, because there's always the next day to be more productive and to improve. So finally, like I think in conclusion, the main point to take away is to firstly be able to sit with the discomfort and like just like acknowledge the feelings of being uncomfortable, instead of like immediately trying to distract yourself from it. And secondly, just to be able to build self-compassion so that you're not trapped in those feelings of guilt and shame, and you're able to like rise above it. Basically, just be able to understand that even 1% improvement is enough. And yeah, finally, I hope that like next time I'm able to follow these steps. And I don't expect to improve suddenly, but more like day by day. And I hope that you can be the same, and when faced with a big task, you're also able to be more productive as well. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.